One of my all-time favorite genres is the 3D platformer. They're just filled with so much charm and unlimited potential when it comes to exploration and maneuverability. When done well, it actually feels like you are in a brand new world. I have played tons of 3D platformers in my life, so believe me when I say that if you choose to play any of these games, you'll be in for a great time. And if you disagree with me or think that there's something I missed, let me know in the comments down below. There are so many good 3D platformers out there that these are just 10 of my favorite. So let's jump in. These are my top 10 3D platformers of all time.
Number 10.
It's no wonder that some of the best games on the N64 came from the company's most stalwart franchises like Mario, The Legend of Zelda, and of course Star Fox. What classic Nintendo series was going to pop up next? It turns out that it was going to be Donkey Kong, and if you ask me, the folks over at Rare nailed it, although I might be the only one that really thinks this nowadays. Donkey Kong 64 is easily the biggest game on the console, with plenty of locations to explore, hundreds of collectibles to grab, and countless mini games to perfect. There is so much to do in this game that it can honestly be a bit overwhelming to those who aren't used to what it really means to play a collectathon platformer. DK64 also features some of the best presentational elements on the N64, with great animations, vibrant characters, and of course, incredible music. There's the stalwart duo of Donkey Kong and Diddy, but this time they're accompanied by 3 more Kongs as well: Tiny, Lanky, and Chunky. Each of them controls wildly differently, offering different attacks, power-ups, and even guns. Yes, each person gets their own type of gun. They're each unique and provide their own type of fun, and I love them all. But my love for Donkey and all the other Kongs goes back to when I was a kid, and I was the go-to guy in my neighborhood for anything DK64. If anyone wanted to know how to unlock something or needed help beating one of the retro arcade games, I was their guy. The biggest public criticism against Donkey Kong 64, and the reason why it's at the bottom of this list, is that there are just way too many things to collect, and I get it. All of those collectibles do drag down the pace of the game, but focusing just on that ignores all of the fun and life there is in this game. It is by far the N64's biggest game, and I still love it to this day.
Number 9.
3D platformers are something you usually see from the bigger companies, while indie devs tend to stick to more two-dimensional fare. That is until recently. So when I saw a Kickstarter for an indie 3D platformer, I was very stoked. What resulted was the charming and delightful A Hat in Time from Gears for Breakfast. A Hat in Time is a game brimming with nostalgia, even though it was released in 2017. The art direction and level design definitely takes inspiration from games of the past, including Super Mario Sunshine, Spyro the Dragon, and Wind Waker. This results in a great cartoonish look that matches the fun and jaunty score accompanying your every move. Speaking of movement, controlling Hat Kid is a blast with double jumps, wall jumps, and every jump in between. This mobility is aided by the different hats you can unlock. Each of them has a different power that affects Hat Kid in a different way, like the ability to stop time, move faster, or even reduce your hit points to 1 if you want some added difficulty. A Hat in Time is a wonderful platformer that takes what's tried and true and polishes it up to dazzling brilliance. So well done, Gears for Breakfast. I cannot wait to see what you do next. I tip my hat to you.
Number 8.
My childhood, as many of you know, was full of mascot heroes. Mario, Sonic, and Crash Bandicoot filled my days. But there were a handful of great 3D platformers that I somehow completely skipped until I became the Completionist. And oftentimes I'd approach these platformers with some hesitancy. I never wanted to poo-poo somebody's childhood game. But in the case of Spyro the Dragon, my fears were for naught. Spyro the Dragon's gameplay is a blast, filled with everything you'd expect a dragon to do. Gliding, breathing fire, and plenty of gems for you to hoard. Add on some incredible music and unique level design, and you have the makings of an instant classic. The only difficulty ever looking at a game like this is when you look all the way back, the graphics really don't hold up for some of the characters. And I don't blame the game or the designers, that's just sometimes hardware. But that said, I love the original Spyro the Dragon. But yet all of my major issues disappeared as soon as I booted up the remaster of the entire trilogy in 2018. Each of the first 3 Spyro games were updated with rich, improved gameplay, reorchestrations of the classic music, and new graphics and animations that made Spyro's world a sight to behold. It took what I thought was already a 95% great game and made it perfect. perfect. Any of the original 3 Spyro games were a ton of fun, but the first one left the biggest impact on me because I truly didn't know what to expect, and I was really blown away. Then the reignited versions came out and fixed a lot of the smaller issues that I had, and managed to improve on aspects I already liked. You can tell that Toys for Bob really cared about the product, especially since they went to Insomniac, Spyro's original developers, for notes all the time. And in the end, Toys for Bob did a phenomenal job with Spyro the Dragon, the Reignited Trilogy.
Number 7.
Insomniac Games may have cut their teeth on Spyro, but the platformer they are most associated with nowadays is Ratchet and Clank. This isn't surprising since Insomniac has maintained a consistent high level of quality almost for 2 decades. And if you ask me, Ratchet and Clank's most recent title is quite honestly their best. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart heralded in the PS5 by showing everything it was capable of. The game is gorgeous, seemingly showing every hair on Ratchet's body and Clank at the shiniest he's ever been. On top of this, there are no load times, with every cutscene, section, and planet flowing together seamlessly. This flow is most evident with the no rift tether that allows our duo to zoom to distant platforms and across battlefields in an instant, making platforming and combat more exciting than ever. It's the extra seasoning added onto the already delicious meal of jumping and shooting that made the series famous. The other great addition is the inclusion of Rivet and Kit, the versions of our heroes from an alternate dimension. Their story is enthralling and has me wishing for a Rivet and Kit side adventure in the future. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is an epic adventure that proves that the future of 3D platformers can still be bright, and it does not have to be on a Nintendo system. Now, all we need is for Sly Cooper and Jack to come back, and then we've got the entire PS2 lineup ready to go.
Number 6.
We've had a great run of PlayStation mascots, but there's no way this list isn't going to mention the orange marsupial in denim shorts, Crash Bandicoot. This game was the closest Sony ever came to rivaling the likes of Sonic and Mario of the 3D platformer generation. And even though Crash has recently seen a resurgence with Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, my favorite game in the series is the first one I ever played, Crash Bandicoot 2. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back kept a lot of what worked from the previous game and tweaked everything just enough to make it more interesting. Instead of just wandering around an island, all levels were selected by a warp room, allowing for more variety in design and themes. For example, chase levels now take place in a snowy area where you run from a giant polar bear and or ride a small polar bear cub, who is still my favorite character in the entire series. Crash 2 also adds a ton more maneuverability with the belly flop and the slide. The belly flop works as an attack as well as a great way to destroy a ton of boxes all at once, while the slide lets you go into small gaps and extend it into a higher jump. It also has the perfect balance between difficulty and fun. The first game was a beast that required the utmost perfection to get every single box and gem. Crash 2 still has the gems, but adds in crystals so you can progress the story, and colored gems that require a different strategy to unlock. It's all very satisfying and makes for a great completion experience. Just like with Spyro, you can get the first 3 Crash games as they got an overhaul as well with the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, where they got graphical updates and quality of life changes. Now this updated trilogy is phenomenal, but mechanically speaking, I think I prefer the original since the hitbox is smaller and there are no stupid time trials that literally left blisters on my hands. Time trials are like my least favorite thing in a game. As is often the case, while I love them both, I'll take the version with no blisters, please.
Number 5.
After years of battling with Nintendo, Sega departed the console market in 2001 after the Dreamcast failed to meet their total expectations. However, Sega released a game at the end of the same year to show that not only were they still alive, but they were trying their best to stay. Sonic Adventure 2 re-released on the Nintendo GameCube as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, shocking fans with the blue blur everywhere. Sonic on his rival's hardware? That was something that fans on both sides thought would never happen, but it did. And it's wonderful. Everything about Sonic Adventure 2 is an improvement on the first adventure game, with better graphics, in my opinion the best music in the series, more focused gameplay, some multiplayer, and an improved Chao Garden. And these got even better in battle, where the graphics were more refined, the Chao Garden further finessed, and multiplayer was given more options. But one of the most important parts to me was the introduction of Shadow the Hedgehog, who is still my favorite character in the Sonic franchise. He really answers the question of, what if you left Sonic in a Hot Topic and only let him listen to My Chemical Romance and Evanescence? Sonic Adventure 2 Battle is everything that makes a 3D Sonic game great, with fast platforming, epic tunes, and just constant fun. It is one of my absolute favorite Sonic games of all time for a reason.
Number 4.
When it comes to 3D platformers, there is one game that immediately comes to almost everyone's mind: Super Mario 64. It's the game that every other game in the genre judges itself by. Super Mario 64 established what a 3D platformer should be: a hub world that connects to many smaller levels, and a single big collectible that is needed to advance the story. That all started right here. You can see the Mario 64 formula in just about every other game like it. Then there's the things it gave to the Mario franchise as a whole. This is by far the most limber that Mario had been at to this point, with the ability to do backflips, long jumps, the iconic triple jump, and literally fly with the wing cap. And the cherry on top is that this is the first Mario platformer to have the plumber voiced by Charles Martinet. Everything about this game is ingrained to not just my soul, but so many people worldwide.
Number 3.
All right, here comes the Mario Barrage. Normally in these kinds of lists, I have a no repeat rule in order to inject a sense of variety. But when it comes to 3D platformers, the Mario series stands out for a reason. Super Mario Galaxy hurled Mario into space with new spherical level designs and gravity-defying gameplay. There were a whole new host of power-ups, the introduction of Rosalina, Lumas, a wild array of worlds, and that game was great and all. But Galaxy 2, in my eyes, somehow managed to blow the original right off the map. Instead of being innovative, Super Mario Galaxy 2 took the route of taking what worked in the game before it and tweaking it to just be a little better in every conceivable way. You know, the kind of thing you'd hope for from a direct sequel. But that doesn't mean that Galaxy 2 isn't afraid to make some changes. The first thing you'll notice is that selecting a level is much more streamlined. Sure, we may have lost Rosalina's observatory, but now you just have to pick a world instead of platforming your way into a world hub where you want to go, eliminating downtime between platforming. There's also more depth to multiplayer elements this time around. Instead of just pointing a second Wiimote on the screen, a second player controls an orange Luma that can attack enemies and collect items on top of what they could do before. And then there are even more additions like the spin drill, the cloud flower, and the ability to ride Yoshi this time around. Super Mario Galaxy 2 takes everything in the first game and improves upon it by so much. It's just a true shame that Super Mario Galaxy 2 was not included in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars pack. What a freaking bummer.
Number 2.
BanjoKazooie took the foundation established by Super Mario 64 and in my eyes perfected it. Instead of jumping into paintings to enter a new world, every level was connected to a degree. And despite the hardware limitations, every section was filled with an interesting detail or a new lovable character to enjoy. All of this exploration is supported by wonderfully bouncy music composed by Grant Kirkhope that really gives BanjoKazooie its sense of identity. The other two big things separating BanjoKazooie from other 3D platformers is right there in the title: Kazooie. Kazooie works as a projectile weapon, a hover jump, and even a secondary run option. Her movement options, plus the fact that she's the perfect foil to Banjo's dopiness, makes Kazooie the perfect video game sidekick. At this point, I have talked about this game hundreds of times already, but it's for good reason. BanjoKazooie, in my eyes, perfected the 3D collectathon platformer only 2 years into its lifespan. It could be argued today that this is the best 3D platformer of all time. However, for me, one game has come along to knock this bear bird combination off its perch.
Number 1.
I mentioned earlier that I was going to break the no repeats rule that I normally have for these lists. Well, I wanted to let you know that technically I'm not breaking this rule. That's because the Mario franchise isn't a repeat, it's a three-peat. Super Mario Odyssey is just hands down the best Mario game ever, period. Every single world is exciting and feels completely different from previous ones, even the 2 ice planets. For the first time in a standard game, Mario has a ton of customizable outfits. Music is incredible. Jump Up Superstar is one of the best tracks to summarize a game's experience so far. The biggest change comes with Odyssey's gimmick, Cappy. A ghost that haunts hats, Cappy takes over Mario's cap and can be thrown to take control of just about anything. A Goomba, gargantuan T-Rex. Then you find yourself buzzing along electric lines in New Donk City, twanging yourself around as a bird in Bowser's Kingdom, or just being a tree in the Wooded Kingdom. Cappy expands Mario's moveset to a staggering degree. You can gain tons of extra height, momentum, and distance, making for some of the most creative platforming in the 3D realm. Yes, collecting all of the moons and coins is satisfying, but so is just running around with no particular goal in mind. And watching a speedrun of this game is truly phenomenal. For most people out there, Breath of the Wild is the definitive Nintendo Switch experience for them. But for me, it's Super Mario Odyssey, no contest. It is easily my favorite 3D platformer of all time. What are your top 10 3D platformers? Let me know in the comments down below. Hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.